What's up, friends? Welcome to another episode of Auto Afflicted. As I mentioned, we are going to turbocharge the 88 300 CE, the Benz coupe, and this begins part one of that turbocharging series. It's essentially turbocharging 101. We're going to talk about all the parts that I got, how we're going to put them in, and the whole plan of attack. I'll provide a link for all the parts within the description. And then ultimately, we're going to go into a few more videos of detailing exactly how we install those parts and all of that good stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. Right, so before we really get into it, I'll tell you why I'm wearing the telemarketer headset. The wire on my other lav mic broke, so I'm stuck with this for now. But that's not going to stop me. We'll just keep pushing on. So this, again, is basically going to be Turbo 101 for the M103 engine, which you can find on a myriad of different models of Mercedes. This one in particular here is inside of my 88 Benz 300 CE. You want to know more about the Benz, there's plenty of videos on the channel that are covering that. But let's get right into it. So Turbo 101, right? You probably know how a turbo works and all about that if you're here watching this video. But for those that don't know everything, the turbo essentially goes on your exhaust manifold and it utilizes the exhaust gases to spin up air and force more air into the engine. And then really, of course, that's where horsepower comes from. More air, more spark and fuel, bigger explosion within the engine, more power. But with that, of course, is the danger. The more power, bigger explosion within the engine, the more chance of damage and heat and all of those factors. So always something to consider. And I find it kind of interesting that I find myself here turbocharging a non-turbo car again, because this is actually my roots. So one of the first cars that I bought and tuned was an 87 GTI. It was an 4-cylinder, 8-valve. So it was a small engine. It did a really horrible turbo kit on it that didn't even have an intercooler. And the one thing I learned is that in general, you want to start with a turbo engine and build that for more power. Because the downside of a non-turbo engine is it's not built for the boost. And so, with boost comes pressure, and then you've got heat, and then also these, non-turbo engines are not designed necessarily to take that, more gas, more air, higher powered explosion within the chamber, the cylinder and the valves, of course. And so that's where you run into issues with like connecting rods, cylinders, valve train, things of that nature. So in general, I suggest starting with a turbocharged car and building that. But there's a lot of research done on this. I'm about 30 years late to the party installing a turbo on this. And the great thing is that from all the people that have done it, there's a lot of information out there on the web. The one thing I noticed is that a lot of videos don't really cover what parts they're using, where they sourced them, or even how they put stuff together. It's more like, oh, here's the turbo that's on my car, blah, blah, blah. And then all the real information lives more in chat rooms and things like that on different threads. And so I spent a lot of time poring over that stuff, asking my friends, researching. The first time you search for something, you're not necessarily going to find it. But anyway, so I found a wealth of goods here. I'm going to show it all to you. I'm going to put the links for all the parts in the description so that you can find this stuff. And it's going to be super simple should you want to go this route. Let's go over the parts. So one of the most important parts you need is the manifold to adapt the turbo to your car. Because you can't do it on your existing manifold. I mean, you can if you're a fabricator, or you can make a manifold. But I sourced this one from Kangaroo's team, and this is a cast one. They do have a full tube welded fabbed one, but this is going to do the job for me. This is good up to 500 horsepower, and so that allows me to adapt the turbo to the manifold of the car, and that makes it, everything here is basically bolt on, so it's really easy plug and play once you understand how it all works. So the manifold, that was, I don't know, $400 something shipped, because it did come from Europe, and so the shipping was pretty expensive. Now the turbo kit, you guessed it, it's an eBay turbo kit. It is made for 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder engines, specifically up to 3 liters like mine, and is designed to be lower boost, so 8 to 10 psi boost range. That actually is still good for about 100 horsepower on a 3-liter inline 6. So, I mean, this already has about 188 horse. We're going to be just under 300. For a rear-wheel drive car from the 80s, it's like a supercar. I mean, I don't really need more than that. Can you build it up more than that? Yes. They're building these engines, not the 103s, the 104s, over 1,000 horsepower, but quite a lot of work, standalone engine management, all of these things. We're doing it a bit more simple. So again, the turbo kit from eBay does come with 2.5 inch intercooler hosing. Comes with a pretty nice intercooler that unfortunately says JDM Sport, but no one's going to see that. Comes with the blue air filter. This is good for 75 horsepower, supposedly. Pretty large size turbo. This is what they call a T3, T4 version. It does have oil inputs, exits, and it came with this. Unfortunately, it looks like the downpipe is built on eBay when you look at it, but you still have to weld it together. Not a big deal, because we're going to custom fab an exhaust for this as well, because really, if you're putting a turbo on your car, you're going to need to mod the exhaust because you want more flow out, and the naturally aspirated exhaust that is already on the car will work, but you're eventually going to want to upgrade that anyway. So, back to the turbo kit. It does come with all the good things. Comes with, great silicone hoses. Unfortunately, they're red. I wanted the black piping, and so black piping only came with red silicone. All my silicone hose will eventually be black, because I didn't really want like a flashy engine bay with big chrome pipes and bright red or blue silicone hoses. It's not really my style. I like it more discreet. Even though it did come with a blue blow-off valve that's JDM extra loud, which hopefully on the soft setting will be quiet, because I don't think there's anything more annoying than a car with a sneezy blow-off valve. I mean, it's not performance. It does come with a nice wastegate. It's already got a 8-pound spring in it, so easy, that's ready to go. And it does come with all the other like AN fittings and braided hoses, all the hoses to connect like the boost controller and all of that good stuff. So it comes with everything you need, basically. The one thing that you do have to figure out, that I figured out for you, is how to adapt it to the throttle body itself. So the M103's throttle body is about 4¼ inches diameter, and so I did source this silicone hose. This is a 4 to 2.5, and it does stretch just enough to get onto the 4¼ throttle body, but it also comes with a 4-inch band. So I did, from Summit Racing, get a band that's I believe this is 4¼ to 4.5. So that's actually going to work with this hose, and so that allows me to make the final connection from the piping coming up from the intercooler to the throttle body itself. And that's that tricky part, because currently on the car, when you see it, the top of the throttle body is just this massive air filter nonsense, some old school junk. So that's pretty cool. The other thing that's really important for the oil, as far as oil and oil return for the turbo, you have to figure out how to get that going. Some people will tap into the uh, the housing for the oil filter and draw from it. Or what I'm going to do is actually use this sandwich mount. So the sandwich mount goes on top of the housing and then has an adapter that screws on top of that. So holds it in place, and then you screw your filter onto it. And that allows you to get a feed to the turbo line to bring the oil to it. This one is actually not the right part. I'll give you the link to the right part. I got to send this back because this one's actually a splitter, and due to the fact that oil is really spun up coming off the turbo, you really don't want to try to feed it back into the sandwich. You do need to do gravity feed down to the oil pan, and so we'll detail that too. What I'm actually going to do on the oil pan is, in the ideal world, you drop the pan and you put like a sandwich on the bolt so that it's all nice and sealed up. But the thing with the 103, particularly in this 124 body style, so the W124 body style, they say that you have to actually jack the engine up a few inches to snake the oil pan out. And after doing a bunch of research, it seems that there are parts of the oil pan that are thick enough that you can drill into. If you do it right, tap it right, and do a good bit of sealant on it, and don't over torque it, of course, there's no need to pull the whole pan out. So what I'm going to do is do that, tap it. Where's all the shrapnel going to go? There'll probably be some in the pan, but what I'm going to do immediately after drilling and tapping is drain the pan. Should be easy enough solution. So that makes everything very bolt-on, because trying to draw oil from the housing of the oil filter would also require the removal of probably the intake manifold and a bunch of the fuel system because of the position. Like, you're just not going to get a drill down there. But something this size, that's essentially the size of the oil filter, we'll just go down in there and screw that right on top. Nice and easy, plug and play. So there's that. And then as far as the gauges go, I did get some really nice Autometer gauges. These are, well, they were really nice. These are older Z series, and they cost almost as much as the turbo kit, honestly. But for me, it's worth having the good gauges, and then also for me, I got to have I got to have them matching. So I got the same brand, Autometer. They're Z series. They all have the same font. They're all black faces with white writing, which is pretty similar to the cluster on my car as is, right? So I got the boost, but not just boost. It's well, the boost actually fell down there. The boost is boost in vacuum, because it's good to know the vacuum as well. And this is the fuel. This is fuel pressure. It's kind of expensive because you do want electronic fuel pressure so that you're not running a fuel line into your cabin. You're technically not supposed to do that, and it's not a good idea to begin with. And then air fuel mixture, because you do want to know that your mixture is right on. These are just good diagnostic gauges that are important for the turbo, so that you can always keep an eye on, the fuel pressure obviously being there and where you want it to be. The air fuel mixture has to be right. You don't want to be running too lean or too rich. That's going to burn up your engine. And the boost, of course. I mean, you got to know if you're getting the right boost. You can feel it, but you need these gauges really for diagnostics. Since I wasn't planning to do standalone management on this, I didn't go with the 5-wire air fuel mixture, which would allow you to go into standalone management. This is the more basic one, goes off the existing O2 sensor, and basically only tells you if you're lean, rich, or right in the middle, but doesn't give you much information in between for tuning, as it were. But the research shows that for 8 to 10 psi on this M103 engine, the CIS injection system, the constant injection system, is perfectly capable of supplying the fuel. It's possible that I may need to get some slightly larger injectors to get some more fuel in there. But the guys at the Kangaroos team who sold me the Manifold said that's how they run it. 8 to 10 psi. CIS handles it no problem. So this is all the goods. Like I said, links are in the description for all of these things. And the next phase that we go into here will actually be mounting the intercooler. So my plan is to figure out the intercooler, mount it, plumb it. It's going to go under the bumper, kind of like JDM style, sticking out because my bumper is cracked, and so that just made sense to me. Plus, if you want to run it behind the grill, you really need to relocate your radiator. So I'm not wanting to do that either. So I'm just going to cut up the bumper, and we're going to stick it up under there. I think it's going to look cool. But I am going to plumb that first because I really don't want to have a lot of downtime. So next videos are going to cover plumbing that. We will cover the custom exhaust that's going to be 2.5 stainless that we're getting from I believe it's JMD stainless pipes, or whatever their brand name is. I'll put it in the link. But good stainless stuff. And ultimately, once we have the exhaust tubing and I've got the intercooler plumbed, then I'll be able to go and bolt the rest of the manifold, the turbo, run all that stuff. And so hopefully the downtime will be less than a week, because I don't have every day to work on it. I got to work on it in my spare time. So that's the news, friends. Thanks for tuning in. If you're interested in turboing your M103 or just following along with the whole turbo process, then like I said, there's going to be more videos. And don't worry, we're still going to be reviewing cars and doing all that good stuff in between. So thanks again. If you liked it, drop a like. If you feel like subscribing, why not? Couldn't hurt. And as always, love the ones you're with. Be kind to your neighbors, I guess. And we'll see you on the next one.